but we're going to go ahead. So, to just give our listeners an introduction, we are the Sports Fans. My name is Kellen Hansen, otherwise known as the Crimson Comet.
My name is Brady Fulmer, otherwise known as Lazy Snake.
I'm Michael Moyes, and everyone calls me Prison Mike.
I didn't even realize your name was Michael Moore. I thought it was just Prison Mike. Like, I thought your first name was Prison, your last name was Mike.
Well, that's pretty much how it is now.
It should be. It should be.
He's going to change it too.
Yeah, I honestly think one of these days we need to come up with some sort of bet that is going to require Mike to change his name to Prison Mike legally.
All I know is eventually I'm going to be in like a grocery store 20 years down the road, and someone from college is going to be like, Prison Mike, and I'm going to be like, who the heck are you?
Well, when I look into your eyes, Mike, I just see so much pain, and I see prison bars. That's what I see.
That is definitely not true.
Just because you have convict in your eyes. But
nope.
Anyways, for those who are unfamiliar with the show, we're, like I said earlier, we're the Sports Fan, a sports comedy show. We talk about sports, give our not expert opinion, but our opinion. And we enjoy ourselves. So for the next hour, we're going to do our best to entertain you. And we also invite you guys, whether you're watching it on YouTube or whether you're watching it on Facebook Live, to comment, and we will respond to those comments. And whoever can tell you, or we're going to do a trivia, and whoever comments will get a free prize.
What's the prize? To be decided?
To be determined.
Fair.
That's fair. That is totally fair. Anyways, it will be at the middle of the show. The middle of the show.
Cool. I'm not prepared for this. It sounds like you know what you're doing, so let's do it.
Oh, I know what I'm doing, guys. Don't criticize the Crimson Comet.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you can criticize the Crimson Comet. Anyways, we're going to start off with our show, but first of all, we're going to have Brady lead us into our first topic today. We are let me just say, we are without Jason Call, the Bearded Wonder. He decided to be lame and decided that working and providing for his family was more important than goofing off for an hour with his buddies. I don't know what that's all about, but no, he has a very good excuse. And we will have him back next time. We will miss him today. Prison Mike already has shed a few tears over it. So has Brady. I know Brady was real broken up about it, but he will be back on the show on Wednesday. So don't fear. Bearded Wonder will be here on Wednesday. So tune in. Brady, why don't you take it away?
All right. So we're going to kind of piggyback off of what we talked about on Friday, which had to do with the quarterback situation and a bunch of NFL quarterbacks going into either free agency or being traded. And we saw a big trade go down just a few days ago. Matthew Stafford from the Detroit Lions has been traded to the Los Angeles Rams for a lot of draft picks, as well as for their previous starting quarterback, Jared Goff. And me personally, I really, really like this trade for the Rams, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Prison Mike, you lead us off. What do you think about this?
So yeah, I saw the trade. We talked about it last time about how Matthew Stafford might not be in his prime anymore, and he doesn't really have a winning record, we'll say. Like, he's not known as a winning quarterback, and part of that could be his organization. So I was interested to see the Rams take him, especially because I felt like Jared Goff and the Rams made it to the playoffs this year. I was surprised to see that they got rid of Jared Goff, but all in all, just a short summary. I think it actually is a pretty good trade for the Rams. I think Matthew Stafford will be a good quarterback for him. Like, he'll have some success there. I think they have a decent team put together, and I guess I'm interested to see what Jared Goff does at the Lions, because they haven't been that good for a while. And I know he's not the greatest quarterback, but I think he has some potential in him still. He's still pretty young. So, and they got a bunch of good stuff out of it. So I'm interested to see what the Lions do with Jared Goff.
All right, Kellen, what do you think?
Okay. Well, first of all, I actually think that this trade could be a trade that works out for both teams, and here's why. First of all, when you examine what the Rams were able to get out of this. I mean, they obviously are very confident in Matthew Stafford's ability. And anybody who watches Matthew Stafford, you can't deny he has some intangibles that I think are going to be really intriguing to almost any NFL team. I mean, this is a guy who has an absolute cannon, a guy who's thrown over 5,000 yards in a season in his career, which is something that very few quarterbacks have done. Plus, he brings up over 45,000 yards passing in his career and 282 touchdowns to only 144 interceptions. And yeah, that's a lot of interceptions compared to a guy like Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers only thrown like 73 in his whole career or something like that. But the thing that you have to realize is that Matthew Stafford has had really terrible teams for most. I mean, he's never really been on a team that's been competitive. I think he's only made the playoffs, I think, once or maybe twice in his whole career. So I think going to a team where he's going to have all these weapons, guys like Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and then, Tyler Higbee, he's going to have some guys that he can throw the ball to. So I actually do think that he is actually going to have some good seasons in Los Angeles. The biggest thing is we knew that the Rams were losing confidence in Jared Goff, because Jared Goff, I think, has lost some confidence in himself. I mean, you look at it, he was ready to go in that first playoff game, and they decided they were going to start, was it John Wofford over him? And so they obviously were looking for something new. But I will say this, like I said, I think this trade will benefit both teams. If you're Detroit, you're really happy because So they sent Stafford to the Rams, and they got the Rams' first-round draft picks in 2022 and 2023, plus a third-round pick in 2021, and then they got Jared Goff. And Jared Goff, he's only, 2 years removed from a Pro Bowl nomination. I mean, he led them to the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's a former first-round pick, and he's not an old quarterback. So I honestly think you're talking about two quarterbacks who could really revitalize their career within these next few seasons. But if I had to say who was the winner of this trade, I would say it would be the Detroit Lions, believe it or not, because there still is that possibility that Matthew Stafford could be a little bit over the hill. He might have some injury problems. He has had problems these last couple of years. And I actually think that Jared Goff is still a quarterback with great mechanics, a lot of potential. And I still think he has 6 or 7 really good years at least in him. Plus, with 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick, I mean, that's a really solid deal for the Detroit Lions. What do you think, Brady? I want to hear your expert opinion.
I think the Rams want this trade. I think you can mention accolades past years all you want, but if
your microphone's a little bit quiet, Brady.
Oh, I don't know what's going on. But I think that Jared Goff he was terrible this year. Just plain and simple. They did make the playoffs. You could have put anyone at quarterback with that defense, and all they have to do is play defense. I feel like the Rams have good on offense, and I feel like
we can't hear you. I can't hear you, Brady. I think your mic is malfunctioning.
How about now?
Okay, that's better. Sorry, will you repeat that? Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, I don't know what was going on. A little technical difficulty. But I think that Jared Goff is terrible this year. I don't know how much you've heard of what I said, but I think you can mention all his past accolades. And he has played in the past 6 years. Not good. I think their defense got him to the playoffs there. And I think Matthew Stafford has a lot more talent than Jared Goff. And I think he's just a better quarterback. I just don't think he's been on a better team. I feel like if you put Stafford on that team this year, he gets at least as far as Goff got. So I think it's a good trade. I agree with what you said. I think both teams benefit from the trade because neither situation was really working out for either team. But I feel like Stafford is a great addition to the Rams, and he's going to be a good quarterback and get him back to the playoffs this year. Into this next year.
Yeah, I think probably I agree with Kellen as far as the Lions winning the trade, and I think the reason is Jared Goff is that's a big trade, but I feel like the draft picks, the future first round picks that they're going to have are going to be really important to the Lions because we've seen it recently. There's a lot of really good players in college. There's a lot in this draft class, and in the next few years, there's going to be a lot of really good players coming through college. And to have a few first-round picks in the next few years, that can really benefit the Lions and help them develop a young team that has a lot of talent.
Yeah, and going back to what Brady said, yeah, I think Jared Goff these last 2 seasons has struggled. I mean, this last year, 20 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. But if you look at it in 2017 and 2018, I mean, he was among the top quarterbacks in the league. His fall has kind of reminded me of Carson Wentz a little bit. It just hasn't been publicized because Carson Wentz had, kind of a feud with Doug Peterson. But I honestly think Jared Goff lost confidence, I think, some point last year. Because you look at his numbers in 2017, 2018. I mean, he threw 28 touchdowns and only 7 interceptions in 2017. And then the next year when they make it to the Super Bowl, he threw over 30. He threw over 30 touchdowns. He threw 32 touchdowns with only 12 interceptions and 4,688 yards. I mean, his numbers were great for 2 years. I mean, he was among the most efficient quarterbacks in the league. The problem is I think that he lost confidence at some point. I don't know if it was something that happened, in the locker room. I don't know if it was something that happened on the field. But the fact of the matter is this is a guy who has a lot of potential, I think. He hasn't been in the league for a long time. I think people need to realize he's only been in the league since 2016. So I think that he's got a big future behind him. And obviously we can look at other quarterbacks, that have, hit maybe a slump in their career. They get traded somewhere else. Guys like Drew Brees who come back and they're able to really establish an identity. Now, obviously, Jared Goff going to the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions have a long way to go. But I do think they believe he could be the quarterback of the future. They don't have to invest in another quarterback for a while because it's interesting, this trade, because Detroit Lions lost confidence in Matthew Stafford. And I think that the LA Rams lost confidence in Jared Goff. So I think we're going to see two quarterbacks that are out to prove themselves. And honestly, I would be pleased to see both these quarterbacks do well. I'm a fan of Matthew Stafford. I like his toughness. I like his intangibles. And then Jared Goff, I think that he's a guy who has a lot of potential that he's shown, and we've seen glimpses of it. But I honestly think that maybe a change in scenery will be really good for him.
No, I agree. Let's move on. Who's got our next segment?
Awesome. I'll go on to the next part. So we talk about this guy a lot. I feel like there's two guys that we talk about a lot. We talk a lot about LeBron James when it comes to basketball. We talk a lot about Tom Brady when it comes to football. And the reason why is because those are the two best quarterbacks of our generation. Those are the two best quarterbacks. Well, I guess LeBron isn't a quarterback, but those are the two featured athletes of our generation.
The two greatest at their sports currently.
At their sports that we've seen in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady is a guy who right now especially is in the public eye a lot. And the reason being is because he's playing for his 10th Super Bowl. Now, we're not going to debate whether he's the GOAT or not. We're not going to talk about his ludicrous numbers that he's put up in his career or even the ludicrous numbers that he's put up this season as a 43-year-old man. He's only 22 years away from being considered a senior citizen. I mean,
that's crazy.
That's pretty impressive. Anyways, Tom Brady, though, recently has said, and this is according to ESPN, throughout his career that he would like to play until age 45. But now at the age of 43 and preparing to play in his 10th Super Bowl and his first with the Buccaneers, he's open to playing beyond that. And then when he was interviewed, he said, I definitely consider that. It's a physical sport. Just the perspective I have on that is you never know when the moment is just because it's a contact sport. There's a lot of training that goes into it, and it has to be 100% commitment for myself to keep doing it. Is Tom Brady going to play into his 50s? Is he going to – I mean, we're talking about a guy who's 43 years old. I mean, he's the oldest quarterback to ever throw a touchdown in the playoffs, right? He's the oldest quarterback to ever play in the Super Bowl. And he's obviously been phenomenal. He's shown no signs of slowing up. Are we looking at another 3, 4, 5 years of TB12 mania? Is he just going to go off and win another 3 Super Bowls? I want to hear what you guys have to say. Brady?
I think we very well could be, which is the scary thing. If you watch the way Tom Brady plays, he doesn't take any hits. or very rarely, if they get to him in the pocket, he'll either throw it straight out of bounds or he'll just drop to the ground like a sack of potatoes. And I think that's why he's been able to last so long and play so effectively at the age of 43 is he just doesn't get hit. He'll just drop, doesn't take sacks, which it's got to be insanely frustrating for the defense. You know, those defensive linemen, that's how they make their living, is getting to the quarterback and hitting him. And you got the greatest of all time back there, and you're just trying to get a shot at him, and you just can't even touch him just because he's smarter than you, and he's just going to drop to the ground. So I think if he keeps doing it the way he's doing, there's nothing that has shown us that he can't play until at least the age of 45 and probably past that.
How would you feel if you were the defensive lineman who actually sacks Tom Brady and like breaks a bunch of bones and ends his career?
You know, you'd be hated by pretty much everyone, but at the same time, I guess that's something to that you can put on your career. You're like, I'm the guy that ended Tom Brady's career.
So. I just don't think that's going to happen, though. I just really don't. I mean, he's just too elusive. That 5'2", 40, man. He's sneaky. He's sneaky elusive with that 5'2", 40.
That video of him running the 40 has got to be the most unathletic thing I've ever seen in my life.
He looked like he was running in mud. If I'm being honest, he looked like he was trying to run out of quicksand.
Yeah, that was rough.
No, well, he's not as good as he is just to run fast.
Yeah.
Nah.
What do you think? What are your thoughts, Mike?
I think with Tom Brady, like Brady said, we haven't really seen any decline from him. And so the fact that he says he'll play over 45, like right now it's totally possible. I think we saw with Drew Brees this year, like he got injured, broke a rib or two. And you could just tell when he threw, like the ball he just didn't have the arm strength that he used to have. And we haven't seen that with Tom Brady yet. So I would say just him considering it's fine. I would say 50 is the max. If he goes over 50, like that is insane. I would think like 48, maybe the Buccaneers would sign him for another 2 or 3 years, and like 48 should be it. But right now, I think he's good to still keep playing over 45. Like the Buccaneers have no reason to worry about him playing over 45 because there's been no decline that we've seen from him so far.
And obviously, I think the biggest thing is Tom Brady is going to play as long as Tom Brady wants to play. Like, ultimately, you're not going to say no to the greatest quarterback of all time. I just think it's amazing, right? I mean, most guys that are his age are getting their hips replaced at this point in their lives. But Tom Brady is in a point in his career where obviously he isn't seeing a decline, and I think he's gaining confidence. I mean, I think if you would have asked him last year, do you think you'll play till past your 45? He'd probably be like, I don't know. But I think right now he's surprising even himself, and maybe not. Maybe he knew he could do this all along. I certainly didn't think he was going to be as good as he was this season. But the fact of the matter is we're talking about a guy who he undergoes treatments and training, and he does so much for his body, puts in so much work. I mean, he's a guy who's put millions and millions of dollars into making sure that his body is in a position to where he can play 16 games a year. Plus, every other year it seems like he's playing in the Super Bowl anyways. I mean, this is his 20th season in the NFL, and he's reached his 10th Super Bowl. He literally has made the Super Bowl in 50% of the seasons that he has played in, which is absolutely incredible. So I think that Tom Brady, we'll see him play past 45, because if he wins the Super Bowl this year and then continues to compete at a high level, there's no way the Bucs are going to not want him back. They're going to want to keep him around as long as he feels good. And I think he's going to find a way to feel good for a long time. Anyways, we're going to move on to the next subject, which actually has to do with Tom Brady. Nick Wright. Look, Brady, what do you know about Nick Wright? Tell me what you know about Nick Wright.
To be honest, I don't really know too much about Nick Wright. I can't tell you too much about Nick Wright. I'm sure you know a lot more than I do.
So he has a show, First Things First, on FS1, and he's kind of a weird-looking fellow. I mean, I'm a weird-looking fellow, but when I look at this guy, I mean, like, he's the type of guy that you're like, yeah, like, if he ever played football, it was definitely Madden. only. Like he's the type of guy that will like go on TV and then like 30 minutes later ask his mom like why she hasn't done his laundry yet for him. Like just looking at this fella, and I don't want to be too much of a hater, but then when I hear his opinion, so this is what he actually said, right? And Brady, I know, has his opinion, and Michael have his opinion, but I'm just gonna read it, and then I'll calm down after a second, let you guys talk, and then I'll give my opinion. But anyways, this is what he said. Direct quote. He said, because Mahomes was in the Super Bowl last year, because Mahomes has played Brady in the postseason a few years ago, because we have a guy that has played in a ton of huge games very recently in the most recent Super Bowl, I think the experience component of this is muted to it. And additionally, you can make the argument that Mahomes is the more experienced quarterback in this way. Patrick Mahomes has played in the Super Bowl for Andy Reid with Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and Tyrann Mathieu and Chris Jones on the other side. Tom Brady has never played in a Super Bowl without Bill Belichick scheming up the defense, without that system, without that team. So all things considered, I think the experience tell the tape is kind of a wash, even though Brady's been to 10 of these things. Okay. Let's hear it, Mike. What do you have to say about this asinine comment?
This dude does not know what he's talking about. Now, there's some truth to his argument. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has been in a lot of big games and big possessions. He knows what he's doing. He's felt the pressure before. So you can say he has a lot of experience. The one thing that I did not like about his statement is when he said Tom Brady doesn't have Bill Belichick scheming up the defense for him. Because I feel like everyone is just saying the only reason Tom Brady is good is because of the coach that he had when he was at the Patriots. And as Tom Brady's proved this year, that is not true. Like, all of his success was not because of Bill Belichick. Bruce Arians he's a really good head coach as well. He knows what he's doing. And Tom Brady has a lot of experience. He does not need a babysitter named Bill to help him win games. So I think that comment is a little bit over the top as far as it being a washout. I mean, Tom Brady's been playing for how many years? 20?
20.
Yeah.
20 years.
As long as you've been alive, Mike.
Yeah, he's literally been playing in the NFL as long as I've been alive.
Longer than any sentence you've ever had in jail.
Yes, that's also true. But yeah, I don't really agree with that comment.
Golly, I think that's as fired up as I've ever seen you, Mike. You must feel really passionate.
Golly, Mike.
Calm down a little.
You tell him, Mike.
I like it. But for me, I can see where Nick Wright is coming from, kind of. But at the same time, I agree that statement is completely crazy. Saying that he has more experience than Tom Brady is completely nuts. If you look at just Tom Brady, like we talked about, Tom Brady has been in the league almost as long as Patrick Mahomes has been alive. I know Patrick Mahomes is probably 24, 25, something like that. But still, Tom Brady has been in the league most of Patrick Mahomes' life. And to say that Patrick Mahomes has more experience because of all those different factors, I think that he was just really reaching there. I think he was trying to come up with a unique perspective, but it made him sound completely crazy, in my opinion.
Now, I do just want to mention, though, just because I said that, I still think that the Chiefs are probably going to win the Super Bowl. But as far as experience, Tom Brady would have one.
Yeah, I mean, that's not the debate. I just want to take a look back at Tom Brady's Super Bowl experience, all right? Just because I want Nick Wright. I'm coming for you, Nick Wright. I'm coming for your job. I mean, ESPN is paying you hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to spout absolute nonsense to the public. So I think somebody needs to have some reasonable opinions on here. So anyways, Tom Brady's first Super Bowl appearance came against the greatest show on turf. You ever heard of him? Yeah, probably the greatest offensive talent, one of the greatest offensive talent ever assembled, led by former Super Bowl MVP Kurt Warner. He led them to a Super Bowl victory, and in his first ever Super Bowl title. His second Super Bowl came against the Carolina Panthers. In that game, he threw for 354 yards and 3 touchdowns to go on to become the Super Bowl MVP of that game. And then he played the Philadelphia Eagles, which, let's remember, that's a team that was led by Donovan McNabb and Terrell Owens, obviously Andy Reid. So he's gone against Andy Reid before in the Super Bowl. Let's remember that. But he doesn't have the experience, right? He doesn't have the experience that Patrick Mahomes has. Anyways, they went on to win that game. He threw for 263 yards and 2 touchdowns, another phenomenal experience. Lost his next Super Bowl after an undefeated season to the Giants. And then he actually lost the next Super Bowl to the Giants again the next time he appeared. And then we go into like what people consider the latter part of his career, right? Where he went up against the Seattle Seahawks, Legion of Boom, arguably one of the greatest defensive teams ever assembled, led by Pete Carroll. Seattle was absolutely incredible that year. He had 328 yards and 4 touchdowns in that game. Then he had the greatest Super Bowl comeback of all time, greatest comeback in NFL history to beat the Atlanta Falcons back in 2016. 466 yards, 2 touchdowns. They won in overtime. Lost to the Eagles in 2017, won against the Rams in 2018, and now he's playing the Chiefs in 2021. So I just want Nick Wright to know. Tom Brady has literally been a Super Bowl champion in 2 different eras. 2 different generations have seen him win championships. And yeah, he had Belichick for a lot of those years. But the fact of the matter is, he's played with different players. He's played against different teams and different coaches. He's won games. He's lost games. He's thrown a lot of touchdowns. He's thrown some interceptions. He has done so much in the Super Bowl that it's absolutely astronomical. It is incredible what he's accomplished in championship games. And so I think that Nick Wright, if I was ESPN right now, I mean, obviously him saying stupid stuff like them gets him publicity, and I guess bad publicity, it's publicity, but what a stupid opinion. What an absolutely terrible opinion. And, Nick Wright, I don't know. You're probably a really nice guy. But you don't know much about sports. Anyways, we're going to move on to our next – unless you guys have anything else you guys want to say.
No, I think you covered it. I think Nick Wright needs to eat his words.
Yeah. Yep. That's the way
Moving
it works
on to the NBA.
Here. We're savage, man. We're going to move on to the NBA. Prison Mike, tell us about some of the crazy things that have been happening this last few days.
All right. So the NBA has been pretty wild the past few days since we last had our show. Last night, there was a crazy finish between the Washington Wizards and the Brooklyn Nets. And this is like, the Nets are probably one of the hottest teams in the East right now, and the Wizards are probably one of the worst teams in the East right now. And it was a wild ending where I believe in 12 seconds, the Wizards scored 8 points to beat, and then the Nets had a chance to tie or win the game and miss like a wide open layup. It was pretty intense. So what did you guys think about that game? Did any of you get to see that finish?
Yes, I think just about everyone's seen that finish that follows sports now. So I think I'm going to have a perspective that's a lot different than you guys, but I'm calling out Steve Nash on this one. I think that
I like it, Brady. Get aggressive.
Yeah. So Bradley Beal drives down. He hits that pull-up 3, which was incredible. The Nets are still up by 2. They're inbounding it under their basket. You have a timeout if you're Steve Nash. I'd say you use that right there, and then you advance the ball up near midcourt, which is a much easier inbound there. You get the ball in, and you win the game. I think that a timeout should have been called when that bucket went in.
Don't you know, Brady? Kyrie's the coach. Kevin Durant's the coach. James Harden's the coach.
We saw how well that worked out for him.
Steve Nash isn't the real coach, man. Kyrie threw that under the bus a long time ago.
Then I guess Kyrie should have called the timeout then if he wants to take up coaching responsibilities.
That's the thing, though, is Kyrie knows what he's doing. I mean, he's obviously had so much experience winning by himself when he doesn't have other people.
LeBron didn't do anything, according to him.
Championship.
But I must say...
Oh, go ahead, Prison Mike.
I must say, Steve Nash would have had to been quick on his feet to call that timeout because the guy who inbounded it had that thing inbounds within like 2 seconds of it going in the hoop, and it was a horrible pass. Who was the guy who threw it in? I think Brady told me his name earlier.
Joe Harris was the guy.
Joe Harris. Yeah, that was like an insanely bad pass.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Kellen?
Well, I mean, the cool thing is I think it's only the 9th time in the last 25 years that a team has come back from from 5 points or more with only 10 seconds. And the Wizards did that. That actually happened twice this last week. We'll talk about the next game next. But yeah, no, I honestly think what it comes down to is, poor coaching. I think poor communication. I think that I don't know if Steve Nash was processing. I don't know if he wanted a timeout. But yeah, that inbound came really quickly. But the thing that amazes me is, I mean, Kyrie said for the first time in his career, he has another guy that can shoot the ball with Kevin Durant. So they should have just had one of them, get the ball. I don't know. I just like throwing Kyrie under the bus. Not a huge Kyrie fan here. But anyways, no, I think it was absolutely – first of all, can we talk about how well Westbrook played? I mean, this is a guy who's had an absolutely terrible season up to this point. And then last night, he finished with 47 points?
I think I saw 41.
41 points. I know between him and then Bradley Beal, two phenomenal guards, this was a much-needed win. I mean, it's still early in the season. This is a Wizards team that's trying to establish their identity. This was a huge win for them. But, yeah, I think that we can talk about what Brooklyn did wrong, but we also have to talk about what the Wizards did right. I mean, they came up big. They used their superstars to win that game. And for a team that's trying to establish their identity, it's really important that they're able to get that done and they're able to win these type of games if they're going to have any success this season in the East. So, yeah, I mean, really exciting game. Another exciting finish was the Portland Trailblazers. Dame time. Damian Lillard. I just want to hear what are your thoughts, first of all, on how the end of that game between the Trailblazers and the Bulls played out, and also, is Damian Lillard the most clutch player in the NBA? Like, is he the most clutch player of all time? This is a guy who just seems like he has ice in his veins, and I am so impressed by what he has been able to do. Prison Mike, what are your thoughts?
Well, that was also a crazy buzzer beater because I believe he hit 2 threes in a row to win the game. Am I correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he hit the 2 threes in a row. The second one was an insanely hard shot. And I do think it does show that we all know that Damian Lillard is an insane shooter. Like, he can shoot from really, really far. And he's a really clutch three-point shooter. And I believe when I watched the highlight, they said that this was his third game-winning shot at the buzzer, three-point shot at the buzzer. So he's done it a few times. He's won a few games for him like that. And it was a really impressive shot. And you could make an argument that he's one of the more clutch players in the NBA when it comes down to the end of the game.
No, absolutely. I think pretty much everyone I know loves Damian Lillard, which I think says something. I don't think I know anyone that dislikes him. And you're right. He's just got ice water running through his veins. The moment is never too big for him. He steps up. That fadeaway three, I remember the one that he hit against the Thunder. And then he hit another one against Houston, I believe, in the playoffs. So that dude is just so clutch, and it's Dame time. That's his thing, But I think that he is probably the most clutch player in the NBA today. I think if you're talking about all time, I think there's a couple arguments to make there, but I think he's the most clutch player in the NBA today. Not the best, but the most clutch.
Oh, absolutely. The thing that I love about the NBA right now, and this is kind of off of a separate topic, there's so many good guards in the NBA right now. I mean, I think he's right up there. When you look at it, they were down with 11.5 seconds left, and then he hits that three-pointer, and then he hits that shot, and he hits that three-pointer to win it. I just think that Damian Lillard, and he's a guy who I think there's a lot of people, especially in this region, who really like him just because he played at Weber State. He played in Ogden, which is only, 2 hours from Rock Springs. It's not far at all. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people can get behind him just because, he does kind of have that relationship with the area, right? But he's been absolutely phenomenal. And I'm really excited to see what he's actually going to do for the rest of his career. I honestly consider him, in my opinion, I think he may be the second best guard in the NBA right now. The second best point guard in the NBA right now. Behind Stephen Curry, and only Stephen Curry, who's obviously one of the greatest point guards of all time. I think Damian Lillard has elevated his game to a new level. And I think that you take him out of the equation, this is a Trailblazers team that would be one of the worst in the league, and he's made them competitive the last couple of years.
Absolutely. I think that's enough about Portland. We'll move on. We'll stay in the NBA. We'll move on to another guard who has some beef with a bigger guy. We got Kyle Lowry and Aaron Gordon apparently have some serious beef, which I've heard a little bit about this before, and I don't know all the info behind this beef, but all I'm saying is if I'm Aaron Gordon, I'm not messing with Kyle Lowry. I feel like he's one of the toughest, scariest guys in the NBA. Does anyone have any information about this beef?
I'll just say this. That was like one of the biggest flops I've ever seen last night. When I saw before the game that they were advertising man, there's some beef between Aaron Gordon and Kyle Lowry, and I've seen a few plays before where there were some really hard fouls between the two of them, but the foul last night that they're the beef's been relit. That was the biggest flop I've ever seen. One of the biggest, I won't say that I've ever seen, but that was a big flop by Kyle Lowry. He barely even touched him, and he was on the ground rolling around.
Hey, it's not bigger than Marcus Smart's flop.
Marcus Smart probably has the worst one ever, but that one was pretty close.
Well, and it needs to be – we need to talk about the fact that this didn't just start last night. I mean, this goes back to last year in the bubble. Aaron Gordon went up for a shot, and he was absolutely fouled. It was flagrant. It was an intentional foul. Came down really hard on his leg, and it actually hurt. I think he had to leave the game, and he was not happy with that. And after that occurred, people kind of forgot about it. And last night, I think Gordon gave him a little bit of a, let's be honest, it was more of a shimmy than it was a foul. It was not, I don't know. I think he was trying to shoulder check him and have his point come across. But yeah, anyways, I think it's just getting blown out of proportion.
Like most beefs do.
Because
of the media.
Because of the freaking media. I know.
And it's the media, but it's also really good for advertising. I mean, it gets commercials and different things like that. And they're like, oh, you got to watch this game to see the beef. And then I think Aaron Gordon just kind of got unlucky because I'm sure the refs were watching closely to make sure nothing got out of control between the two of them. And there really wasn't anything there. I was quite surprised when I saw it was blowing up on the news.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and here's my thing is, see, the thing I like, the reason why I'm a big MMA fan is because the beefs are so real there, right? I mean, like these guys will go after each other and then settle the beef. They like go punch each other in the face and kick each other in the mouth and like break each other's arms and dislocate.
They have a way to settle the beef.
It's awesome. It's awesome. They settle the beef like man. But in the NBA, it just like simmers, right? Because like if you lean on a guy too hard in the NBA, they call a foul, right?
Right.
Everything is just like Twitter and then things like that. I mean, we're talking about, guys that literally are getting paid to shoot basketballs, right? And they take it so seriously and they take it so personally. But anyways, back to my original point. I get off topic really easy. Anyways, I think that Aaron Gordon had legitimate reason to be mad at Kyle Lowry because that took him out last year. I mean, that changed his bubble experience because after that, I don't know if he missed time for that, but I know that it was an aggravated injury. So I don't know. I think that it's one of those things that the media wants to blow up about and they want to be pansies about, but let's be honest, it's really not that big of a deal.
No, I agree. But like I said, I wouldn't want to start a beef with Kyle Lowry. That guy's scary for how small he is.
I can agree with that.
Is he?
Yeah. I don't know if he's scary, but he's definitely one of the toughest guys in the NBA.
I think he's tough. I think he's scrappy. I always saw him as more of a scrappy guy rather than like a tough guy, you know?
I don't know. He might pull a knife on someone. You never know.
You never know.
Never know.
I don't know. Right. He also might buy you lilies and roses because maybe he's just a sweetheart.
We don't know the guy, but
I mean, you look at Prison Mike and you're like, that guy is a killer. Like that guy has a killer instinct. And then you meet him and he's like, you're like, man, like I want this guy to raise my kids for me.
Yeah, looks can be deceiving.
Anyways, we're gonna go on to something, a topic that is always fun to talk about, and it involves the name Ball. And you know when the name gets brought up in anything, you're gonna have a good time. I mean, and no, we're not gonna be talking about LeVar Ball. And I'm sure if LeVar Ball was on our show right now, he'd come on and he'd be like, "Me, I'm doing incredible. I'm doing terrific. My son LaMelo, he gonna score 500 points a game. He gonna go on like his brother Lonzo and win 14 MVPs in 10 seasons. My boy, he is the new Michael Jordan times 5." Anyways, how was my LeVar Ball impression?
Pretty good.
It's not quite as good as your Charles Barkley impression, but it's pretty good.
Anyways, we're going to talk about his youngest son because he's not on the show. So we're going to talk about his son for him. His youngest son, LaMelo Ball, in the 20 games that he's played, has already been, to me, more impressive than Lonzo Ball has been in the 4 seasons he's been in the league. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts on how he's performed and how he's looked at the beginning of the season. Brady, you go first.
My favorite thing about LaMelo, and he has performed great, but it seems like almost every game, maybe every other game, he seems to have some like crazy highlight play where he either gets like an awesome assist or hits some awesome 3, fancy dribbling, just something. He's just a highlight machine, which you know how people love that. But yeah, he's been phenomenal. I think that a lot of people kind of expected him to be. I remember before the draft even happened, we were talking sometime before, and we were talking about how he was going to be a lot better than Lonzo, and that seems to be the case so far. He's much better. I think he's in a better organization. I feel like the Hornets really have things going for him right now, so it's exciting to watch what he's doing over there in Charlotte.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we can already agree that LaMelo Ball is better than Lonzo, kind of like you guys said. But he's already been playing better right now than Lonzo ever has in his career so far. And one of my favorite things about LaMelo Ball is the fact that he is averaging a good amount of assists and steals. It seems like sometimes he's a little inconsistent with his scoring. Like last 2 nights ago, Saturday night, night he had 27 points. And then I've seen nights where he only has like 3 or 2. But one thing that he has been pretty consistent on is assists and steals, which for a point guard are really, really important. And like Brady said, a lot of his assists seem to just be like highlight reels. I mean, he just throws it up to Miles Bridges, and when a guy can dunk like that, I throw it up to him all the time too. Like between those two, they're throwing it down, and they're having some really impressive connections. And so that's what I've really liked to see. That's what I've liked to see so far from LaMelo Ball is the fact that he's passing the ball so well, getting his team involved, and that he's playing some good defense and getting steals.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think you brought some really great points. First of all, I don't think that the Charlotte Hornets drafted him to be a scorer, right? I mean, right now, if you look at it, the load, it falls heavily on Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier. Those are guys that have already proven that they can score the ball in the NBA, and those guys that have been primary scorers. What they needed was a playmaker. They needed a guy who could get the offense going, and that's what they found in LaMelo Ball. He's been very efficient. Now, obviously, he's got a lot to improve on, right? I mean, he doesn't shoot a great percentage from the three-point line. He's really not a great shooter. He's not an elite scorer yet. But I feel like when Lonzo Ball was drafted by the Lakers, they brought him in to be a playmaker, right? And that's what he was at UCLA. And I felt like he was so inefficient. I mean, you would just see the dumb turnovers, and you'd see the games where he'd miss 6 threes. But you haven't seen that in LaMelo. He knows his role on this team. And if I'm being honest, I actually think that he's being underutilized by the Hornets. He's not even a starter for this team. And I think what they need to do is they need to give him a little bit more access to the offense, let him unlock some of his plays, and give him the opportunity to do what he does. But I've been really impressed with LaMelo Ball, and I'm telling you what, the Hornets are a lot better team than I think a lot of us thought they would be. And how about the reemergence of Gordon Hayward? He's been playing some really good basketball this season, which as a guy who's a Jazz fan, I'm actually happy to see him succeed with the Hornets.
Yeah, I am too. I like Gordon Hayward. I feel like I can say this as a Jazz fan because I am a Jazz fan. I feel like he was severely overrated when he was with the Jazz. I don't feel like feel like he was ever as good as people thought he was. And because of that, I kind of had a bitter taste in my mouth to Gordon Hayward because I was like, this dude isn't a superstar like they say he is. But no, he was good in Boston when he came back from his injury, and he's been even better in Charlotte. So it's good to see him succeeding, especially after that terrible ankle injury.
Mike? Yeah, Charlotte has a good team, and like you guys said, Gordon Hayward's been pretty fun to watch. He's been playing good for the Hornets, and I don't know, Gordon Hayward is just kind of a guy I feel like you almost have to like. Like he's just one of the people where he looks nice, seems like a good guy, good character on and off the court, and so it's good to see him play. It's good to see him play well with the Hornets, and it's good to see the Hornets actually like have a decent team. They have not been that great recently. And now that they're starting to put some pieces together with people who aren't really big names, like they don't have the all-stars that everyone thinks they should need anymore to win. So to see like a small team with not as many known players playing well, it's pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I think what they do have is they have a lot of depth, though. And I think they have a lot of guys that are good at things. Maybe they don't have a lot of guys that are stars. I don't even know if they have a real star on their team. No. We're talking about teams now that have 3 or 4 superstars. I don't think they even have a real star, but they have some really solid players on their team. They're going to be really interesting to watch. They have a long way to go. I mean, they actually do have a losing record still. I think they're 9-11. But they are performing at a level that is definitely improved from where they were last season. So I think there's a lot to look forward to if you're a Hornets fan. Which, have you guys ever met a Charlotte Hornet fan?
Never.
No.
I've never met.
I don't think I ever will either.
I think I've met a fan of like every team in the NBA, but I've never seen a person with a Hornets jersey on.
It's a small market and it's a long ways away.
Yeah, it'd be like, that'd be like, that's almost as bad as putting an NBA team in Boise, right, Mike?
Yeah. I'd get no fans.
I'm gonna do it, and when my team wins a championship, I'm gonna
let Mike pitch that to our viewers. Mike, why don't you pitch your Boise franchise team to our viewers?
I'm telling you guys, if I ever
all day, prison Mike, take it away.
If I ever have a lot of money, because that's what it would take to start an NBA team, I'm telling you, I would put a team. I'd try to expand the NBA and put a team in Boise, Idaho. That is where I feel like you could have a really good market in Boise. So for all those Boise fans out there, if I ever have money, I'm telling you, I'm gonna get you an NBA team.
And you'll have 1,700 people coming to your games.
Yeah.
Have fun selling tickets.
If it's between the high school game and the NBA game, it'll probably be a split shot. But and you realize, Mike, that during potato farming season, nobody's going to be able to come, right?
Yes, you guys will get them all away.
You guys are just doubters. When I have a ring, I'm gonna call you up and rub it in your face.
Well, you might have a ring, but it won't be an NBA championship ring because there's no way. There's no way.
But let's be honest, like, when am I ever going to have that much money? So I'm never going to have a chance to even do it.
Big, Mike. Dream big.
Mike, I think you have a better chance of becoming a multimillionaire than Boise has a chance of having an NBA team.
All right.
And I say that with confidence in your ability to become a wealthy man. If Mike was a rich man. Anyways.
All right.
Because I'm so sick of talking about these NBA beefs. We're going to talk about people that actually punch each other in the face. We're talking about the greatest fighters who have ever lived. They are brothers. They beat people up, and they are not the Diaz brothers.
No.
That was anticlimactic, right? No, we're actually going to talk about Jake and Logan Paul because they've been kind of in the public eye for a little bit. And
when it comes to sports lately.
Well, why sports? These are two YouTubers. I remember watching these guys when I was in like high school and thinking, man, like these guys are kind of dumb. Like they're really not that funny. They really don't do anything that is that impressive.
How did they get famous?
And then I went to Bolivia and they were like semi-famous. And then I went to Bolivia and I came back and all of a sudden they're huge. I mean, Logan Paul was having these fights all of a sudden with KSI, who's a rapper, by the way. And now Logan Paul, and this needs to be talked about. And I think we actually talked last time, but it's being compounded. Logan Paul accepted a fight with Floyd Mayweather. I actually watched a podcast, Logan Paul podcast. He had Mike Tyson on, and Mike Tyson was explaining to Logan Paul just how badly Floyd Mayweather was going to beat him up and how badly he was going to lose on national television. Logan Paul has had one fight in his whole career, which he lost
to a rapper.
Rapper. So this guy's, I've never heard of these guys before, so you're gonna have to like do some explaining to me. Yeah. Are they even fighters, or are they just like YouTubers who get on to fight people and make money?
YouTubers who are trying to fight people.
Mike brings up a good point. These are guys that they really shouldn't be famous, but they are. All right, they're media celebrities, right? They're famous from Vine and YouTube, and Logan got famous, and then Jake kind of piggybacked off of him. And I watched Logan fight KSI, and I thought, man, this guy is not a good fighter. And I'm not saying I'm a good fighter. Like last fight I was in was with my older sister Abby. She beat the crap out of me. I mean, she destroyed me. And if you know Abby, you know she's a tough old bird. But still, I mean, I'm not challenging Logan Paul to a fight. I'm just saying this guy shouldn't be fighting the greatest boxer of the last 20 years.
Another question. When they fight, is it an actual fight or is it like WEE or whatever that thing's called?
Did you just say WEE, Mike?
Or is it WWE?
That's W. It's WEE, Mike.
So is it a real fight? Like, will Floyd Mayweather actually be going like hard?
See, and I kind of wonder maybe they should blindfold Mayweather and like tie his right arm behind his back, And then I think, it might go to majority decision with Mayweather still winning. But yeah, it'll be an actual fight. Well,
kind of.
Okay.
It'll be a spectacle.
I'm just saying right now, that's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I will not be watching that fight. Like, there's no way I'm paying money to watch or even wasting my time to watch that.
Oh, exactly. And that just goes to show how far the world of boxing has fallen, where they're throwing together these gimmicks. But I will say this. His brother Jake Paul, who, Logan is he's better spoken. He seems a lot more intelligent. And he's the one who has more of the internet fame. His brother Jake Paul, even though he's not as I don't know what's the word. He's not as presentable as Logan Paul. He's a way better fighter. I mean, I saw this guy. He fought Nate Robinson this winter, and I'll tell you what, I was actually really impressed with him. I mean, this guy knocked Nate Robinson out. He just destroyed. I mean, he did that in front of his kids. I mean, Nate Robinson, he's never going to recover his fame. That guy needs to he needs to fake his own death and become a hermit, because
that was a career ending.
And he was talking so much, like Nate Robinson was talking so much crap. And Jake Paul, that guy, I do think Jake Paul is a decent boxer. Like watching Logan Paul fight is kind of sad. Watching Jake Paul, it's like, okay, this guy, like, he's done some legitimate training and he's actually impressed me. But he has accepted a fight with Ben Askren. Now, this fight will take place on April 17th, 2021 is, I believe, the set date. And Ben Askren, for those who don't know him, he's an MMA fighter. He's a former, he's an Olympic wrestler and NCAA champion. I mean, he's a phenomenal grappler and wrestler, but he's not really a boxer. And going into this fight, I'm actually kind of intrigued by it. No, I actually would favor Ben Askren, obviously, because this is a guy who paid millions of dollars to fight people and beat people up. But I actually think Jake Paul could make things interesting. I want to hear your guys' opinion.
I personally think that it's going to be a lot closer fight than people realize. Like Kellen mentioned, I think it was right before we went on air, Ben Askren is a wrestler. He's not a boxer. And Jake Paul is a boxer, and he's proven that he might not be a professional boxer. He might not be up to the standards of some of those professionals, but he's a guy who can hold his own in the boxing ring. So I would not be surprised to see Jake Paul take that, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah. Well, and this is the same Ben Askren that last I knew of Ben Askren was his head getting introduced to Jorge Masvidal's knee.
Oh, yeah, the flying knee.
The flying knee. Greatest knockout I've ever seen in MMA history, by the way.
Was that the one in like 2 seconds?
The fastest knockout in MMA in UFC history.
Yeah, I remember watching that.
But I think most people looking at it, they're going to pick Ben Askren. And I think that if Ben Askren knocks out Jake Paul, and if Logan Paul knocks out or gets knocked out by Floyd Mayweather, I think we should try to make a deal with them that they never return to the world of combat sports ever again.
Yeah,
that they stop talking crap and that they just disappear from the combat sports arena forever. That would be awesome. But anyways, those are things to look forward to. We're really excited to get into some of the fights that are going on in the MMA and in the UFC. In the month of February, obviously, Kamaru Usman will be fighting Gilbert Burns. March, we have a super fight between Israel Adesanya and Jan Blachowicz. And then obviously the big fight, Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou. Those are some big things to look forward to. We're definitely going to talk about those fights. I'd imagine we'll be talking about the Kamaru Usman Gilbert Burns fight next week, but obviously we don't want to get ahead. But a lot of fun things to look forward to if you guys are MMA fans, things that we'll be talking about. We're actually going to have to wrap up our show here with our favorite segment, the C-squared moment of the day. Obviously, for those who haven't watched, we talk about some things that have happened in our lives, things that have happened in the sports world that make us happy, and then we elaborate on that. First, we're going to have Brady go. and he's going to talk about his C-squared moment of the day.
All right. My C-squared moment of the day is the fact that it was 40 degrees and sunny pretty much all of today. I walked outside to go to Walmart earlier in the day, and I was wearing a coat, and I was like, golly, I don't even really need this. It felt like spring out there, and I absolutely despise winter with a burning passion, and I love warm weather. So so happy today. Tomorrow it's supposed to be the exact same way, so it's warm outside, and I'm happy.
Yay, Brady. Prison Mike, you go.
All right. My C-squared moment of the day is I got a job and actually had my first day of working here on campus. I have a little job that I'm doing. It was only 3 hours today, and I'll only work a few hours a week, but I'm excited to make some money and to be doing that. So that was my C-squared moment of the day.
What is your job, Mike?
I'm a tutor at the Peer Tutor Center.
You know, I was thinking you were going to be like, I'm a bouncer or something like that, like
at a club
on campus. Yeah,
that'll help you on your way to buying the Boise State basketball team. So keep working.
Yeah, maybe Mike will be in the MMA one of these days. He's a feisty little fella.
He's a fighter.
He's very wiry. He just he comes at you from all angles.
I'd put whoever I was fighting in the guillotine.
You're looking at his fist, and then his foot comes and hits you in the face. You don't even see it coming. Anyways, we're happy that you have a job. My C-squared moment of the day is actually going to be my dog. Michaela, can you do me a favor? Can you hand me Josie? My lovely assistant, my wife, is handing me. So this here is my C-squared moment of the day. Her name is Josie Jane. Talked about her on the radio show before. She's my C-squared moment of the day because her and I got to play today, and she was so fun. And we took a nap, and she fell asleep on my chest. And I woke up, and I thought, man, I have a very sissy-looking dog, but I don't care. She is freaking adorable. Anyways, so Josie was speaking to the microphone, and
I can hear
her. She's my C-squared moment of the day. Say bye. Say bye. Bye. Josie Jane has turned me into a pansy, by the way. Anyway, that is going to be it for Sports Fans today. We will be back on Wednesday, continuing our show. Hopefully, we'll get the Bearded Wonder back. He always provides a little bit of comic relief. Anyways, you can follow us on YouTube at Sports Fans. We would love it if you guys could like and subscribe to our channel. Also, we are going to start a GoFundMe for my NBA team in Boise. So, signing off, we are the Sports Fans. This is Crimson Comet,
Lazy Snake,
and Prison Mike.
And remember,
O-K-G,
brother.
Okay, G, brother.